I was a psychology major at the junior college, San Jose Junior College, and as part of my general education, I took an intro to philosophy with George Freund, and that class was probably my favorite class I've ever taken. The semester after I took that class, I had the period free when that class was going on, and I sat in on it and audited it again the next semester just because I liked it so much. And that's why it was my intro to philosophy class, and anyone who's considering going into philosophy should take the intro class. I don't know how it is here, but I imagine, because the professors are good, that it's also pretty damn good and interesting. What I like about philosophy is that the possibilities are endless. You can study anything with a background in philosophy. You could study, ethics is sort of standard field, but you could study philosophy of biology if you wanted to. You could study philosophy of history or history of philosophy, whatever grabs you. Just the limitlessness of the possibilities, I think, is pretty awesome. So since I heard you ask Ash this, I was cheating a little bit, and I would want David Hume to be my mother. Because I love David Hume for many reasons. First of all, he's an absolute genius. So that would be cool, possibly a little intimidating. But also just personality-wise, he was utterly fearless in his philosophy. He followed it to what some people call absurd conclusions, and whether they are or not is not really the point. The point is he wasn't afraid of the absurdity, and he took it where it led him. And he was just a great guy. I'm told the French called him the good David. That's definitely a quality I would want in a mother. Lucky enough to have in a mother, even though it's not David Hume. I'm hoping that it will give me nearly universally applicable critical thinking skills. That's my number one hope. I also really enjoy that it helps me keep an open mind, I suppose, be humble about the opinions I have, and recognize that we don't know many things that I thought we did, and we may never know some of them. And just sort of learn to accept that sort of a harsh reality, if it is reality.
Because we can't know, right?
But we can't know. I suppose that's it. Yeah, humility. The number one thing is the critical thinking skills, but to elaborate on that, humility and acceptance, and that really goes along with the critical thinking, I think. Learning argumentation and learning what forms of argumentation are bad, not so that I can convince everyone else that I'm right, but so I can be at least relatively convinced myself that I am at least somewhere close. I at least haven't made a egregious error in my reasoning. I think the question about free will is endlessly interesting because we feel, or at least I do, so strongly intuitively that we do have it, and yet, from what I can tell, the good arguments all say that we do not. So I think that's fantastically interesting, and it really pits, at least for me, it pits my intuition against my reason in a way that I think is really, really interesting. I wouldn't say that there's any one question or issue there's any one question or issue that I feel very strongly about, for the reasons that I discussed earlier, that I'm now prepared to accept that any of my opinions might be wrong, even the most basic ones. I suppose as long as we're talking about issues that are important to me, I should bring up that I find that atheism is a very important issue to me, not because I want to convince everyone that I'm right and that there is in fact no God, but because I want everyone else, not everyone else, but mostly people who are in charge of our country, to realize that the question's far from settled and they may not be right. And we can't legislate based on Christian morals or Islamic morals or any sort of religious morals. We have to have a secular government for more reasons than there might not be a God, but that is certainly one of them. I think the public has a very negative opinion of philosophy, and I suspect that it's because philosophy, and I think this is true, has not produced a body of work or a body of results that directly benefits the public the way that science does through technology, or engineering also through technology. So I think the role of philosophy is, at a bare minimum, self-enhancement. One can make oneself a better person, I would say, but certainly a better citizen by studying philosophy. And I also think that philosophy can contribute even to these fields like science or art. simply by providing a perspective that one with training only in science might not have, or one with training only in art or English or whatever might not have. And while they might not do the work that the public sees in the end, I think they can provide an important, philosophers that is, can provide an important jumping off point for the folks who do the work that, for the folks who do the work that the public ends up seeing and that ends up benefiting mankind. I am also still hopeful that philosophy will at some point answer big questions like free will, or whether or not there's a God, or how we ought to live. I realize we haven't done it in however many thousands of years, but I'm still hopeful. There may be answers out there. I think that's what draws me to philosophy too, is I go to class for the perfect argument, to hear the perfect argument or to analyze it. I think that's so cool. And that's what draws me to probably my favorite subfield of philosophy, which is logic. To be able to form those types of arguments, not yet, but to be able to evaluate them.
Right.
Hopefully, eventually be able to form them. Yeah, it's so cool. You're never gonna, if you study physics, you're never gonna use physics to show why physics is right. That's absurd. You can't do that. And English, I suppose English might, in the sense that it is similar to philosophy, but the point is, this is really the field where you not only can do that, you should do that.
Right.
I think that's very cool. If you're an incoming freshman, take an intro to philosophy class. I think that'll give you a good taste. If you can accept uncertainty, I suppose philosophy might just be for you. And if you're willing to hear other opinions, not just willing to hear them, I guess, but thrive on them, then come check out philosophy. You will be awash in a sea of other opinions. And you will be, I think Ash said this, you will be prepared to be wrong probably most of the time, as we all are. I heard somewhere that, I think it was Galileo, he drew a circle, and he did a thought experiment. The ability to do thought experiments, there we go. If you're coming into philosophy, I recommend that you cultivate the ability to do thought experiments because they are so incredibly informative. I absolutely love thought experiments, but I digress. He drew a circle, and he did the thought experiment where he said that if I were to draw lines, actual perfect lines, and fill up that circle, drawing from the center point out to the circumference, it would take, yes, an infinite amount of lines to actually fill in that circle, because lines have, no actual width. Does that make sense? But then he thought about a concentric circle even bigger, and those lines, even though they're actual geometric lines, would still be diverging a little bit. So even if there were an infinite amount of lines filling in that smaller circle, the bigger circle would require more. But that doesn't seem to make sense, because there's an infinite amount of lines filling in the smaller circle. But so then you need even more lines. It's I don't know what to say other than I think that thought experiment is extremely cool, and I don't know where to even begin with ideas of infinity. It seems to be, almost by definition, something that can't even be thought. I anticipate when I eventually get my BA that I will say of a philosophy BA that you leave it knowing you know nothing. You don't learn things, you learn how little you know.